My name is Brttny Raup. So funny story, I actually graduated twice from TLU. I did undergrad, major of business administration with specialization in marketing, with environmental science minor and a social entrepreneurship minor. And then I actually stayed to do a master's program for data analytics.
So my name is Gracie Schwartz. I'm a kinesiology rehabilitation science major and I'm going to TLU.
Okay, so I am Amey Szanto. I began my education back in 1993 when I graduated from high school, and I actually left the next day to go to Canyon, Texas. And I was in a musical called the Texas Musical Drama. And so I was in rehearsals 8 hours a day, every day for 3 weeks. And then the show opened. And so it was all summer long. And I started college classes 3 weeks after I graduated high school at West Texas A&M University. I went there for a year and a summer, and then had to leave. I had nodules on my vocal cords and was told that if I singing completely that I would lose my speaking voice as well as my singing voice. I returned in 2003 after I went to my 10-year reunion in July and came back and said, I have to do what I'm supposed to do. I'm not supposed to be selling mobile homes. I am supposed to be teaching children, and I know that. So I started with just core curriculum at ACC, and then got checked out to make sure that I didn't still have nodules on my vocal cords. Because if I did, then I was going to be a classroom teacher. If I did not, then I was going to teach music. So then I graduated in 2008, music ed. Of course, you know, I student taught it at Rose Garden. I've taken ORF level courses, it's the methodology that I use, mostly with the sing, play, act, dance. I'm a master level teacher at that. I've taken all 3 of my certifications there. So nice. That's where I'm at.
So my name is Sharon Murphy. It was Sharon Huffman, but I recently got married.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I went to Texas Lutheran University, graduated with my bachelor's in 2017. I had a bachelor's in business administration, concentrating in marketing. And then I minored in social entrepreneurship. And then I actually graduated with my master's in 2018, being in the first class of the data analytics master's program.
What is one of the biggest challenges of being the first to go to a 4-year university, in your opinion?
I think the big challenges were in relation to my family. The idea that college was even important. Clearly, they didn't need a college education to do what they're doing, and if they are any term of successful,
right.
Then it was, it was like, well, why are you doing this? And I wanted to do music, and at first, when I went to college the first time, I wanted to do musical theater. I wanted to Broadway, and then when I got done with that, I wanted to come back and teach. And so I didn't have the support because I was 18. I had to get my dad's income tax. And my dad is a very private person, a conspiracy theorist, all these things.
Yeah.
So he was like, no, you're not getting my social security number. You're not getting my taxes. And so I hit a wall, and I was working full time, but minimum wage was $4.65. I didn't have enough money to support myself, and then have that still gumption to keep going. The partying came in, and I just wanted to socialize a lot.
It's basically just the whole kind of learning the FAFSA, learning how to deal with loans, learning how it's not like high school. I basically had no one to look up to, pretty much. I was basically the first one on both sides of my family to go to college. Granted, I do have cousins, but the thing is, though, is in my immediate family, I was the first one to go, and it's kind of a struggle bus too, because I was able to go, but yet my younger sister couldn't go. So it's kind of like, it's like, I'm very thankful for doing it, but at the same time, I kind of like feel bad because my sister doesn't have the same stuff as me, but it's more of because I actually save up money. I'm actually really good with money, unlike her.
Yeah.
And so,
I would say not really being able to relate to your family members. So I have several family members who they actually went to smaller universities, or like they just got their associate's degrees or took classes, and so coming home I would be so excited to talk about things, and my family just they wouldn't really understand, or they would overhype it.
I think like a lot of people talk about like financially how it's harder, but I feel like one thing is like your parents just don't, like, since they didn't go through it, they don't really understand like the whole like enrollment, signing up for class, what like certain things mean.
Please describe to me a moment that was challenging for you because you were first gen.
One moment was whenever I decided to change my major after my first semester there. And that's usually like a good time if you're going to change it, typically because you've just gone through like all your gen ed stuff and you're not really behind yet. And my mom just did not get that. She was like, so you've just wasted like a whole year basically at school that we paid for, and she just didn't get that. I hadn't taken any like major specific classes. She went to a 2-year school for a little bit, and so like all of her classes were like major driven. She didn't really have any gen ed when she went back to school. She just didn't understand that I hadn't really wasted any time yet.
When I knew that I was going to have to leave school, again with that lack of support emotionally, mentally, but also financially, my parents had an agreement because my stepdad went to college, and that's when my mom met him. But they had all agreed that they were going to split my my tuition. Okay, tuition was $1,600. And my dad said he wasn't going to pay for college anymore. And my mom said she wasn't going to pay for college. I finished the second semester, but I did not pay for it for 12 years. And then I finally paid for it. And so that moment of like sitting in the financial aid office and them saying, why isn't your dad going to give you what we need, this information? You simply can't continue to go to college if you don't have the financial means to do so. And my only option was I was like, well, if you have to, you can move back here. And so I did. And I moved back to Albuquerque and managed a salon and, and then just got into the workforce.
Ooh, junior year, hands down. So for me, because my health actually took a toll because of this, I think 18 hours. I had 3 different jobs and I was in 5 different organizations. And so the whole ordeal with that year was that I didn't know how to like balance things out because I was like focused on everything and I was just so stretched thin. Really have someone to tell me like, hey, you take a step back, don't take 18 hours, stay in band, but leave all this other stuff because there was just so much drama. And really, if I just had like someone who went through junior year before me could have told me that would have been a huge heads up because that was my hardest year.
The culture shock coming from a small town in Texas, everyone kind of thinks the same, or they were all raised the same. I came from a very conservative town in Texas, going to a very small liberal town in Texas. It was just such a big change, and I think that really taught me a lot of life lessons, honestly. Whenever you're around people that are very like-minded like you don't really think about what you're saying because everyone either agrees with you or they may disagree a little bit, but you still pretty much agree. There were several times whenever I would not really voice my opinion too much, and I'm a very opinionated person. I learned not to voice my opinion too much and kind of learned to read the room. And like, if I figured what I thought would offend someone, I didn't want to risk my friendship or the connections with that person, because it wasn't that big of a deal whether they knew what I thought on it or not. It was definitely very different, and I would tell my mom that all the time, like, I don't understand, people are making a big deal about this, and I don't understand, it's so strange. Being first gen, your family can't really even prepare you for that. They're so used to being around people that also think the same as them, and they've kind of already put their roots down somewhere that they can try, but they can't really prepare you for culture shock unless they've gone through it.
What might a struggle that first gen students go through, but is not necessarily communicated as much as it should be?
Probably time management, I would think. Because a lot of people do emphasis on the FAFSA and on the loans.
Yeah.
And granted, yes, that is a huge ordeal, and everyone needs help with that. Because I actually went to a high school called the Ann Richards School in Austin, and they actually really helped us out with that, which was great. But really just the whole time management ordeal, because when you're in freshman year, you're like, oh, I have all this time, but then all of a sudden, like, deadlines are come in, and like you don't know how to pace yourself. Also, the library is like your number one best friend. You have people in there, and your friends are there too. So, but I think it's just more of just taking advantage of the the stuff that you have at your disposal. Like, a lot of people don't see that.
I think like what I said in the first one, with just like they haven't gone through it, so they don't quite understand like how to like help you sign up, like what all you have to do, check all the boxes. And it's easy to like forget to do things because of like navigating through whatever. Like TLU has a website, kind of navigating through that, figuring out everything you have to do.
Yeah.
And then just like if you don't understand something, they can try and help you, but they can't always.
I would probably again just say the culture shock, because that's something that I really did not expect at all. And with all the stuff that I did try to prepare for, that was just something that I never really saw coming. Being in such a conservative town, Texas is a very conservative state overall, that you don't expect to go to a place where you're around a bunch of people who think differently than you. Because if you go to another state, you can prepare for that. If you come from a liberal town, you can prepare for that because majority of the state is conservative. So I just think vice versa, it's just not it's not communicated very well. It wasn't communicated in my high school or anything. Like they were like, yeah, you'll just be a number in a crowd, or you'll just be a face in a crowd. Like nobody's really gonna care. And then I went to a super small school where they do care.
So what might be a struggle that first gen students go through, but may not always be really communicated as much as it should be?
One would run into people that you're in class with that do not understand the life of a person that doesn't have the same privilege they have, right? You know, that privilege, white privilege, socioeconomical privilege, all of that is like really coming about because we're facing our dirty laundry right now, and it's, you know, it's bad, and until we face it and say it for real, that it's there and it exists, and we stop brushing it under the rug, we're never going to evolve from that. You know, you would go to school with someone that there was never a question in anybody's mind that person wouldn't go to college. The expectation that person would go to college from your family, because everybody did that, because that's what you do. Meanwhile, you're in a class with that person, and that person literally does not know what it's like to be in your shoes at all. You know, I mean, I certainly can say that it could be skewed the opposite way, and you could reframe it with the amount of pressure that person has to go to college. But I think it's just being around people where the expectation is different than what you had. And then like beyond that, many first generation, if you don't have a scholarship, then you have to find a way to do funding. And so because socioeconomics has to come in. I mean, it has to play there. I don't know
Very
of a
true.
lot of first gen. I don't know if I know of any first gen that didn't have to deal with that. And is that it though? That's classism, right? So it's like this huge cycle where you just keep repeating until somebody finally has to break free and say, no, this is what I'm going to do. So now what do I have to do, to get there? The socialization aspect of it, the number of classes that you can take, all of those things, even materials that you use for class. I mean, all of those things that they get affected by your access, whether or not you have a computer. Because back then you would never have, nobody had a computer.
Right.
If you did, you were rich, things are inherent for many people, but for first generation, it's just not.
What are some steps that all first gen students can take to make the transition easier from high school to college?
Go on the college tours, really get a sense of the community around the college, visit places around town, because you're going to be living there for 4 or 5 years. So you don't have to get to know the whole town, but especially if you're going into a place that is kind of far away, or just wherever it is, to help with that culture shock and to help with that separation, go and find places, go and find a coffee shop, try a few coffee shops, see if there's a place that you like, so then whenever you go, you can make friends by inviting them to that coffee shop with you, because you already know that you like it. One thing that I really loved was I went on a college tour to TLU, and I sat in on a psychology class, and I never even ended up taking psychology, but I sat in on a class, and I liked how much engagement there was. I liked how similar it was to my high school. So I definitely think if you get the opportunity to sit in on a class, that helps give you the vibe that you're going to have at college, and so that's really going to help. Take your parents with you. Because your parents can try to help as much as they can, and if you're a first gen and they've never been, they're going to be excited too. So you want them to really be in on it, so that they're probably going to be more involved in your college career, so that you feel a little easier trying to open up to them and get that help from them.
Definitely making sure they have a support system. I think that's super important. Trying to stay on top of it, because if you wait too long, it's easier to forget steps and not fill out everything. Just make sure you're ahead of the game, because it's going to take you longer than you think it's going to.
What are some steps that all first gen students can take to make that transition from high school to college easier? I know you touched on it a little bit, but if you want to go in more detail, feel free to.
Well, I know just taking any classes. I don't know if there's classes or anything, because I know in my school they had it, but I don't know if it is at other high schools, because my high school was completely different. Try to educate yourself as much on loans, on FAFSA, on how to balance things and stuff like that. Taking advantage of anything in the area, really, because I know there's so many even scholarships that my sister didn't know about, and if she took advantage of that, she would have had her school paid for it. She did.
Get your parents on board, and you might have to sell it to them, and do your own research. Get in really good with your counselor. That's one of the things that I didn't do well enough. Really go out there, be active, and apply for as many places as you can. And it's not ever too early to start looking. My 7-year-old already knows. He said Texas Tech also, and I was like, no, you don't. I was like, do you know where Lubbock is? My God. And it smells like cows. I would say, joining the workforce early, planning for getting in with your counselor and having multiple times. That's what they get paid to do, is to help you do that, make that transition. If it is important for you to be near your family, then you've got to make those decisions, because if as a person you feel like you are going to be lost being out on your own, then you've got to support yourself mentally, you know?